The gunshot split the white silence. Clara Belle Monroe fell hard into the snow. The world spun. Cold rushed in where warmth had been. Her shoulder burned, then went numb. Blood soaked through wool and lace. Red spread across the snow like spilled ink. The wagon did not stop. The horse kept moving. Franklin did not look back. "You're more trouble than you're worth," he said. His voice cut deeper than the bullet. Then the blizzard swallowed him whole. The wind screamed across the plains. Snow lashed her face and eyes. It erased the road in seconds. Clara tried to scream. The sound vanished in the storm. No one heard her. She lay on her side, gasping. Each breath stabbed her chest. Each breath came slower than the last. The sky pressed low and gray. It felt close enough to touch. It felt like a lid closing. She was 23 years old. She had been married less than 2 years. She was already dying. Her gloved fingers twitched. She reached for the wagon tracks. They were already filling with snow. The cold crept upward, first her boots, then her legs. Her body shook without permission. Her teeth chattered hard. Her jaw ached from it. She tried to sit up. Pain exploded in her shoulder. She collapsed again, face first. Snow packed against her cheek. It smelled clean and empty. It smelled like the end. She thought of Philadelphia, brick streets, warm kitchens and coal fires. She thought of her mother's hands, always busy, always gentle. She thought of the day Franklin proposed. His smile had looked steady then. His voice had sounded kind. He promised land, he promised safety, he promised a future. The future lay frozen around her now, wide, merciless. The wind tore at her coat. It found every tear in the fabric. It found every weakness. Her wedding ring felt heavy, cold metal against swelling skin, a promise turned to iron. She laughed once. It came out broken. It sounded like someone else. "So this is it," she whispered. The storm took the words. The storm always took everything. Her vision blurred. White bled into gray. Gray bled into nothing. She wondered if dying hurt. She wondered if it took long. She wondered if anyone would ever know. Franklin would tell them she left. He would say she ran. He would say she was ungrateful. People would believe him. They always did. He spoke well in public. Her hand sank deeper into the snow. She could not feel her fingers now. That scared her more than the pain. The cold felt thick, like wool stuffed inside her chest. Each breath pushed through it. She counted to stay awake. 1 breath, 2 breaths. The numbers slipped away. Her thoughts slowed. Her body felt distant. She closed her eyes for a moment. Just a moment, she told herself, only to rest them. Darkness came fast. It felt warm. That frightened her. "No," she said. The word barely moved her lips. "No, not like this." She forced her eyes open. Snowflakes fell straight down. They landed on her lashes. They melted there, tiny drops of water, cold tears from the sky. She remembered the train west, how she pressed her face to the glass, how excited she felt. She remembered believing him, believing in something new. Her chest tightened, not from the wound, from the waste of it all. Her body gave another shudder, then another, then less. The storm roared louder. It sounded almost alive. It sounded hungry. She thought she heard something else, a low sound, a deep rhythm. Hooves. She held her breath. The sound came again, closer this time. She tried to lift her head. Her neck would not obey. Her vision swam. The sound faded, then returned, steady, real. Her heart kicked hard. Hope heard worse than pain. Hope always did. "Help," she whispered. The word fell into the snow. It lay there useless. The hooves slowed. They stopped somewhere nearby. Snow creaked under weight. She heard a horse snort, warm breath in the cold air. The sound felt impossible. Boots crunched closer, heavy steps, careful steps. A shadow blocked the light, a man's shape, tall, broad. Her vision tunneled. She saw a coat, thick, dark. "Ma'am," a voice said, low and sharp with concern. "Can you hear me?" She tried to answer. Her mouth moved. No sound came. Hands brushed snow from her face. They were rough but gentle. They did not shake. He swore under his breath, a short, angry sound, the kind meant for himself. "She's been shot," he said. The words cut through the storm. "They left her out here." Something warm wrapped around her. Fur. Heavy cloth. A coat pulled tight. Her body protested. Pain flared bright, then dulled again. "Stay with me," the man said. His voice stayed close. It anchored her. She smelled leather and smoke, horse in winter and wool, the scent of someone alive. She felt herself lifted. The world tilted. Snow fell away. Her head rested against something solid, a chest, a heartbeat. The rhythm steadied her. It was slow, strong. The horse shifted beneath them. Its muscles moved with purpose. It did not panic. The man climbed up behind her. He held her tight, not crushing, not distant. "I've got you," he said. The words pressed into her ear. "I won't let you freeze." Her eyes closed again. This time felt different. This time felt earned. The storm raged on, but it no longer owned her, not completely. As darkness took her, one thought stayed, a single clear truth. If the stranger let go, she would die. The storm didn't end, it only got quiet. Cole Harrison stood at the window. He watched snow drift across the yard. The wind still whispered against the logs. Behind him, she slept. The woman from the blizzard. The one left to die. Her name was Clara. She had said it soft, like it hurt to speak. Now she lay wrapped in quilts, face pale, lips cracked, the bandage on her shoulder already soaked once. Cole didn't know much, but he knew blood. He knew how it moved, or didn't. He knew she was lucky, or cursed. He pulled his coat from the peg, stepped outside. The cold hit hard, but Bear needed water, and Cole needed answers. The barn creaked in the wind. Inside, the mare shifted in her stall. Cole unsaddled the horse, rubbed him down, fed him oats by hand. "You did good, boy," he muttered. Bear snorted once like he knew. Then Cole turned to the saddlebag. Maybe there'd be something, some clue. But it was empty. No note, no name, just buckles and dust. Back inside, he stoked the fire, checked on Clara again. Still breathing, still with him. She'd made it through the night, but the next storm would be different. He didn't mean weather, he meant the truth. By mid-morning, she stirred. Cole was slicing bread. He heard the blanket shift, turned quick. Her eyes were open, unfocused, but watching him. He crossed the room slow, offered water. She drank, just a little. "How do you feel?" "Cold," she rasped. He nodded. That much was obvious. "Your shoulder's bad," he said, "but you're stable." Her hand went to it. She winced, then looked down. The coat, the cabin, him. "You brought me here?" He nodded. "Found you buried out near Bitter Creek. You were bleeding, snow coming down sideways." Her breath caught. She looked away. "You alone?" he asked. Her lips parted, then closed. He didn't press. Not yet. The second day was worse. Fever came. She thrashed in the bed, mumbled things, names, please. Cole did what he could, wiped her brow, kept the fire hot. The blizzard howled outside, but the cabin stayed warm. By the third morning, she woke clearer. "Cole, right?" she asked. "Yeah." "You live out here alone?" "Not quite." She frowned. Then they both heard the boots. A soft step on wood, a quick movement near the door. Mariah. 11 years old, half Nez Perce, sharp as flint. She stepped inside, quiet as a cat. Dark hair, dark eyes, a stare that cut deep. Clara blinked. Mariah blinked back. "Mariah," Cole said. "She's with me, comes and goes." Clara tried to smile, didn't quite make it. "Hi," she whispered. Mariah didn't answer, just stared, then turned and vanished out the door. Cole sighed. "She'll warm up, maybe." Clara let her head sink back. "She's scared of me." "No," Cole said. "She's scared of being left." That night Clara watched the fire. Cole sat across the room, sharpening a blade. The storm outside had passed, but inside things still felt fragile. "I didn't think anyone would come," she said. He looked up. "Most wouldn't." She nodded. "That's what I thought." They sat in silence. Then soft footsteps again. Mariah appeared with a bowl. She walked to Clara's side, set it down, didn't say a word. Clara looked inside. "Stew, warm." She looked up. "Thank you." Mariah hesitated, then whispered, "Don't die, okay?" Then she turned and disappeared into the dark. Cole didn't speak, didn't need to. But in his chest, something shifted. The woman in his bed carried more than a bullet wound, and Cole was about to find out just how deep the damage ran. This woman had been left to die, and Cole had no idea what kind of trouble he just rode into. The cabin was too quiet. Even with the fire crackling, even with the clock ticking soft in the corner, it still felt hollow. Clara lay on her side, eyes open. She hadn't slept much. The pain kept her half awake. So did the memories. The cold was gone now, but it had left a mark, not just on her skin. She watched the shadows dance on the log walls. They moved like ghosts, always just out of reach. Across the room, Cole stirred the fire. He hadn't said much that morning, neither had she. Sometimes silence said enough. He glanced over. "You hungry?" She shook her head. He didn't push. Cole wasn't the type to crowd, but he wasn't distant either. He just waited, patient as winter. Clara didn't know what to make of that. Later he left to check the fence line. Mariah came in with snow on her boots. She didn't say a word, just swept near the door and disappeared again. Clara tried to sit up. Her shoulder throbbed, but she managed it. She looked around the room. Everything neat, everything useful. A rifle above the hearth, a shelf of worn books, 2 coats hung by the door. She spotted her own dress, folded clean, blood-stained, but there. Her breath caught. She remembered falling, the snow swallowing her, Franklin's face cold as stone. "You're just a burden," he'd said. Then came the shot. Then came the silence. She gripped the quilt. He didn't hesitate, not for a second, not even to look back. Her stomach turned, not from pain, from shame. She had followed him west, chased promises he never meant. She gave up everything, family, home, her name. And what did she become? A bruised woman on the floor of a cabin she didn't know. Cole returned at dusk. His boots were wet, his hands red from cold. He brought wood inside, set it down, tossed 2 logs on the fire. Then he looked at her, like he could see something shifting. "You tried to sit?" She nodded. He pulled a chair close, sat down. "You want to talk about it?" he asked. She hesitated. Then, "Not yet." He nodded once, didn't push. Again that patience, again that quiet space. But something cracked in her, a thread loosened. She took a breath, let it out slow. "He told people I went to visit family back east." Cole looked up. "Your husband?" She nodded. "There is no family. I have no one left." He said nothing, but she kept going. "He used to be charming. Said he'd give me a home, a future." She looked at her hands, thin, still trembling. "I thought coming west would fix things. I thought he loved me." Her voice broke on the last word. She turned her face to the fire. Cole didn't move. He just said soft, Did he hit you? A pause. Yes. Her throat closed. The word still rang. Yes, she said again, not at first, but often. Cole sat back, his jaw tightened, his hands clenched. But he said nothing cruel, nothing loud. He just looked at her and said, "You didn't deserve that." And that broke her more than the violence ever did. She cried then, not loud, not wild. Just quiet tears. The kind you cry when the weight finally shifts. He didn't touch her, didn't speak. He just stayed. That was enough. Mariah came in later. Clara wiped her face. The girl didn't say anything. But she placed a folded scarf on the table, left without a word. Cole picked it up. She made that last winter, her first time knitting. Clara ran her hand over it. "Why did you take her in?" she asked. "She was left behind during a raid, too small to carry. I was scouting nearby." He didn't say more. Didn't need to. Clara looked at him. "You save women a lot?" He smiled, just a little. "No, just the ones left in the snow." Night settled in. Clara laid back down. Cole banked the fire, hung up his coat, poured water from a tin. He paused before leaving the room. "You're safe here," he said. "Take the time you need." She looked at him, really looked. "You said that like you mean it." "I do." He left her in the quiet. And she whispered to the dark. He said I was nothing, and I started to believe him. The next morning brought sunlight. It filtered through the frost-glazed window. Soft, pale, almost gold, the kind of light that tried to make things better. Clara blinked at it. For a second she forgot where she was. Then the ache in her shoulder reminded her. She turned slowly. The fire had gone low. The coals still pulsed under the ash. Cole wasn't inside. Neither was the girl. She pushed herself upright with one hand. Her body protested, but it held. For a while, she just sat, letting the light touch her face, letting silence fill the room. It was the first time she hadn't been afraid to be awake. Mariah came in without warning, boots muddy, hair windblown. She dropped a small bundle of kindling by the hearth. She glanced at Clara. Not cold, not warm, just watching. Clara nodded. "Good morning." Mariah didn't reply. She knelt near the fire, fed it wood, one stick at a time. "I'm Clara," the woman said softly. "I guess you know that." Mariah looked up once, then back down. "You live here?" Mariah shrugged. Clara tried again. "You helped keep me warm. That stew, was that from you?" Still no answer, but her movements slowed. Clara smiled a little. "I'm not going to hurt you." Mariah stood, brushed her hands on her skirt. She moved to the table, picked up a folded cloth. Then she turned to leave. Clara's voice came quiet. "But someone hurt me." Mariah paused, for just a second, then walked out the door without a word. Later that day, Cole returned from the barn, snow on his sleeves, a small sack of grain slung over one shoulder. "How's the shoulder?" he asked. "Still there," Clara said. "Hurts less today." He gave a small nod. "You're sitting straighter." "I'm trying." He smiled barely, but it reached his eyes. "Good. You're stubborn. That helps." She didn't argue, didn't deflect. She just said, "I guess it's my least attractive quality." He poured water into a pot, set it on the fire. "No, not at all." She looked at him, trying to read what he meant. But he didn't say more. That afternoon, she sat near the window. The sun was slipping behind the ridge. Everything turned blue and soft and fading. Mariah returned again. This time, she brought a broom. She swept without being asked. Clara watched her. "You always clean this much?" she asked. Mariah didn't stop. "Do you like it here?" Another pause. Finally, the girl said, "It's safe." The first word she'd spoken all day. Clara smiled. "Safe's a good place to start." Mariah didn't look at her, but her sweeping slowed. Over the next few days, the rhythm of the house changed. Clara could get out of bed, walk to the table, peel potatoes, stir broth. Mariah watched her closely, sometimes helped, sometimes didn't. She never asked questions, never pried. But she listened. Clara could feel it. One evening, Cole came in late. He smelled like wood smoke and cold. "Storm coming again," he said. Clara stood at the stove, one hand steadying the pan. "Another big one?" He nodded. "Could blow in by morning, best we stay in for a few days." He glanced at her. "You doing all right?" She gave a half smile. "Better than being face down in the snow." Cole chuckled, a real laugh this time, short but warm. "You've got grit," he said. Clara stirred the pot. "I didn't know that until I had to." He stepped closer, put a blanket over the back of her chair. "Well, now you do." That night, Clara couldn't sleep. The wind had picked up. It scratched at the windows, moaned across the roof. She lit a lamp, sat at the table with a scrap of paper. She hadn't written in weeks, months maybe, not since Franklin stopped letting her send letters. Her hand trembled slightly, but she began to write, not a letter, not a journal. Just words. Her name, the date, things she missed, things she didn't. She didn't notice the girl standing in the doorway. Mariah watched her in silence, then patted over. "What are you doing?" she asked. Clara looked up. "Writing. Helps me think." Mariah stepped closer. "You miss your old home?" Clara thought for a moment. "I miss who I was before I forgot I mattered." Mariah sat in the chair opposite her. "You still matter." It came so simply, so honestly. Clara blinked. "Thank you," she whispered. Mariah folded her arms on the table, rested her head there. She fell asleep like that. Clara didn't wake her. By morning, the snow had returned. Thick, heavy, slow-moving. They stayed inside all day. Clara taught Mariah how to braid fabric, scraps. Cole repaired a hinge on the front door. The cabin felt full for the first time. Full of noise, of breath, of life. That evening, Clara stirred soup while Cole cleaned his rifle. She watched him work, the way he moved, focused, careful. "You were a scout, right?" she asked. "Long time ago." "Army." He nodded. "Ever shoot a man?" He looked up at her, met her eyes. "Yes." "Did you ever regret it?" A pause. "Only once," he said. Then he set the gun aside. Later, while drying dishes, Clara asked softly, "What do you think happened to someone who shoots his own wife and drives off like she's cargo?" Cole didn't answer right away. He leaned against the wall, folded the towel slow. "I think he's not finished yet." Clara's heart kicked. The warmth in the cabin suddenly didn't matter. "Do you think he'll come back?" "He might," Cole said. "But if he does, I'll be ready." Clara looked at him. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." She stepped closer. "Enough to take a bullet for me?" He looked straight into her eyes. "Enough to make damn sure no one shoots you again." She wanted to speak, to say something big, but all she could whisper was, "Why?" He picked up the pot of water, poured it carefully into the basin. "Because out here we help each other," he said. "It's how we survive." That night, Clara sat by the fire long after the others went to bed. She held the scarf Mariah had given her, ran her fingers over the uneven stitches. She thought about the cabin, the quiet strength of Cole, the soft bravery of a girl who had lost everything. She thought about how broken she had felt, and how she was still here, still breathing, still mending. The wind knocked against the walls, but she wasn't afraid of it anymore. She pulled the blanket tighter, closed her eyes. The girl who wouldn't speak just whispered, "Don't die, okay?" and disappeared into the dark. The knock came just after breakfast. 3 sharp raps, not loud but firm, too measured to be lost. Cole was already by the door. His hand hovered over the rifle. Not drawn, not relaxed. Clara froze. Mariah stood near the hearth, her bowl halfway to her mouth. She set it down without a word. Cole opened the door. A man stood on the porch. Snow on his shoulders, dust on his boots, a silver star pinned to his coat. "Morning, Cole," he said. His voice was dry as fence wire. "Sheriff Garrison," Cole replied. "Didn't expect you out this far." "Storm gave us a break," the sheriff said. "Thought I'd ride while the trails held." His eyes shifted, landed on Clara, and stayed there. She straightened her back. Her hand gripped the edge of the table. She didn't look away. "This her?" the sheriff asked. Cole nodded. "She's the one." Garrison stepped inside, took off his gloves, stood near the fire. "Name?" he asked gently. "Clara Monroe," she said, clear, steady, though her knees were trembling. "Ma'am," he said with a nod, "I'd like to hear your story, if you're up for it." She glanced at Cole. He nodded once. No pressure, just support. Clara pulled the blanket tighter around her, took a slow breath, and told him. She told him about Franklin. How he'd courted her in Philadelphia, spoken of land, a ranch, a quiet life. How she'd married him with hope in her chest, how that hope cracked, then broke. How Franklin had become someone else, cruel in private, charming in town. She told him about the last argument, how she'd said she was going back east, how he laughed. Then she told him about the snow, the shot, the silence. When she finished, the room felt heavy. The sheriff didn't write anything down. He just looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. "Did he say anything before he pulled the trigger?" he asked. Clara's voice dropped. "He said, 'You're more trouble than you're worth.'" Garrison's jaw tightened. He turned to Cole. "Did you see tracks?" "Barely," Cole said. "Storm covered most, but they were fresh when I found her. Wagon headed south." The sheriff nodded. "I've heard whispers. Franklin Monroe's name's come up before. Real estate scams, whiskey trades. He's clever." He paused. "Also mean." Cole crossed his arms. "So what now?" "I'll send word to county south of here," Garrison said. "If he crossed into Arizona territory, we'll hear." Clara looked down at her hands. "What if you don't find him?" The sheriff was quiet a long moment, then said, "We usually do. Eventually." She nodded, but her chest still felt tight. Mariah returned with a second cup of coffee, set it down near Garrison without being asked. He gave her a small smile. "Thank you, young lady." She nodded once, didn't speak. He looked at Clara again. "You got somewhere safe to stay?" "She's with me," Cole said, "until she decides otherwise." Garrison raised a brow, then shrugged. "Better than the church basement, cold as a meat locker there." He finished his coffee, pulled his gloves back on. "I'll be in touch," he said, "to update you." He looked at Clara. "I'm sorry this happened. I won't lie. It's a wide territory, but we'll try." She met his eyes. "I appreciate that." He turned to leave. "Sheriff," Cole called after him, "if he shows up here again." Garrison looked back. "You do what you have to, Cole. Just make sure it's clean." Then he was gone. The wind had picked up again. Not a blizzard yet, but close. Cole stepped outside, watched the sheriff ride off. Clara followed him to the door, stood beside him in the cold light. "He's not coming back," she said, trying to believe it. Cole didn't answer. Because he wasn't sure. That night, Clara couldn't rest. She lay on the cot near the fire, listened to it pop and hiss. Watched shadows flicker on the beams above. Franklin's voice kept whispering in her head, "You're nothing, you're weak. No man wants a broken woman." She gritted her teeth, sat up. Across the room, Mariah lay curled on her bedroll. Peaceful, small. Clara stood, walked to the shelf. There, in a small box, sat her wedding ring. Cole had removed it from her hand while she was unconscious. She hadn't put it back on. Now she opened the box, stared at it. Cold, gold. It didn't look like love. It looked like a cage. She snapped the box shut. By morning, the sky was gray again. Cole came in from the barn with snow in his beard, set down a bucket of water. "I'm heading into town tomorrow," he said. Clara looked up from peeling carrots. "Why?" "To send a telegram, pick up supplies." He didn't mention checking with the sheriff. He didn't need to. "I want to come," she said. His brow furrowed. "You sure?" "Yes." He nodded. But they both knew what it meant. She was ready to face the town, to be seen, to be asked questions. She didn't want to hide anymore. That afternoon, she found Mariah in the barn. The girl was brushing the mare. Clara leaned on the doorframe. "She likes you," she said. Mariah kept brushing, didn't answer. Clara stepped closer. "I know you don't trust me yet. That's all right." Mariah didn't stop moving, but her eyes flicked up. "I'm not going anywhere," Clara said. "Not unless you want me to." Finally, the girl spoke. "He hit you, didn't he?" Clara froze, then nodded. "Yes, he did." "Cole doesn't," Mariah said. "No," Clara agreed. "He doesn't." They stood in silence for a while. Then Mariah said, "You can ride with me tomorrow. I'll show you the back trail." Clara smiled. "Deal." That night after supper, Cole read by the fire. Mariah was asleep early. Clara sat across from him, sewing the edge of a towel. She looked up suddenly. "You knew who Franklin was," she said. Cole didn't flinch. "I heard his name before, around town. Deals gone bad, men cheated." "Why didn't you tell me?" "I wanted to hear it from you." She considered that. "I'm not afraid of him anymore." "You sure?" "No," she said, "but I'm tired of running." He nodded. "You got more grit than you know." She set the sewing aside. "Thank you," she said, "for finding me, for not asking for anything." He leaned back, looked at her for a long time. "Don't thank me yet," he said quietly, "because if he shows up here again, I won't just let him walk away." She didn't sleep easy that night, but she slept. And in her dream, she wasn't running. She was standing still, facing the wind. If Franklin Monroe was smart, he was long gone. If he wasn't, he was coming back. The storm hit just after sunrise. It came fast. No warning. 1 minute, the trees stood calm. The next, wind screamed through the valley like it wanted to tear the land open. Cole secured the barn door with both hands, snow already piling against his boots. His breath showed in thick clouds. He knew the signs. This wasn't a passing squall. This was the kind of storm that kept a man inside for days. By the time he made it back to the cabin, the light was already gone from the sky. Inside, Clara had stoked the fire high. The room glowed gold and orange, the windows fogged at the edges. She looked up as he came in. Wet coat, wind-burned cheeks. He shook the snow off and shut the door behind him. "Bad?" she asked. "Bad enough," he said. "We're not going anywhere." He rubbed his hands near the fire. Mariah sat cross-legged on the floor, brushing the mane of a handmade cornhusk doll. Clara stirred a pot on the stove. "Guess it's a good thing you stocked up." Cole grinned. "I've known Montana long enough to respect her temper." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. By afternoon, the wind howled like a beast. Snow hit the cabin walls in sheets. The logs groaned under the pressure. Mariah curled up near the hearth with a book. Cole read aloud, slowly, his voice calm and deep. Clara listened while shelling beans. But by evening, the quiet had worn thin. Storms like this don't just press against your roof. They press into your bones. Cole stepped out briefly to check the animals, came back soaked and tight-jawed. Wind knocked part of the fence down, he muttered. Herd's penned in, but we'll need to fix it quick when it clears. Mariah went to bed early. Clara stayed by the fire. She wrapped a quilt around her shoulders, watched the flames move. Cole poured 2 mugs of coffee, set one down beside her. "Storm bringing back memories?" he asked. She didn't answer at first, just stared at the fire. Then, "It was snowing that night." He nodded. "I know." She took a sip. "Every time the wind hits the door, I flinch. That's not weakness. It feels like it." Cole leaned back. "Fear's just your body remembering. Doesn't mean you have to listen to it forever." She gave him a look, like she wasn't sure whether to believe him. Then the wind hit the door again, louder this time, and she jumped. He didn't speak, just reached over slowly, steady as a mountain, and touched her hand. She didn't pull away. Midnight brought the worst of it. The wind shrieked like metal, twisting. Snow pounded the roof in fists. Clara tossed under the quilt. Her mind wouldn't quiet. Every creak sounded like boots, every gust like his voice. She sat up, her breath shaky. Across the room, Cole stirred on the cot near the door. "You all right?" he asked, voice rough with sleep. She didn't answer. He sat up. "Clara?" Her hands trembled in her lap. She looked at him through the dim. "Do you think he still wants to find me?" she asked. Cole didn't lie. "I think men like him don't like losing." She looked down. "Then he'll come. And I'll be here." She shook her head. "I'm not scared of dying anymore. I'm scared of what comes before." Cole stood, crossed the room. He knelt in front of her, waited until she met his eyes. "Nothing's getting through me to you," he said. "Not a man, not a storm, nothing." Her throat caught. "I want to believe you." Then start there. She slept after that, not well, but better. And in the morning, though the storm still raged, she felt something shift. A little less fear, a little more ground beneath her. Mariah didn't speak much that day. She moved slow, kept to herself. Clara found her by the pantry shelves, refolding cloths that didn't need folding. "You all right?" Clara asked. Mariah shrugged. "I used to think storms were loud because they were angry," she said. Clara knelt beside her. "And now?" Mariah looked at the window. "Now I think they're loud so you can't hear yourself think." Clara smiled. "You're not wrong." Mariah hesitated. "Then, when he comes back, will you run?" Clara froze. Then said quietly, "No." Mariah nodded. That was all she needed. That night Clara sat by the fire again, sewing, quiet, focused. Cole read from an old book, his voice steady, rhythm soothing. Halfway through a sentence, Clara set her stitching down. "You ever think about leaving here?" she asked. He glanced up. "Sometimes, never seriously." "Why?" He looked into the fire. "This land gave me something when I had nothing." She waited. He didn't say more. So she asked, "And what do you have now?" His eyes met hers. "A reason to stay." The wind had died down by dawn. Snow still fell, but it drifted soft and lazy. The worst had passed. Cole was already outside, fixing the fence. Mariah helped bring hay to the barn. Clara stood on the porch, wrapped in Cole's old coat, watching the light come back. She breathed in cold air, sharp and clean. And for the first time in months, she felt like she could take a full breath. When Cole came back in, boots covered in snow, she met him at the door. "Do you believe people can change?" she asked. He set the tools down. "Some," he said. "Others just hide what they really are." She nodded. "I don't want to be who I was." "You're not," he said. "I don't even know who I am now." Cole looked at her, saw the bruise that wasn't on her skin. "You're alive," he said. "That's a start." That night Clara dreamt of the snow. But this time, she wasn't lying in it. She was walking through it. One step at a time, steady, upright. The storm behind her. She fell into his chest sobbing, and for the first time, he held her like she belonged. The trail into town was slow. Snow still blanketed the hills, thick as cake flour, but the sky had cleared. Bright and hard, the kind of blue that only showed up after something tried to kill you and failed. Clara rode behind Mariah on Cole's second horse. Her body still ached from the wound, but the motion helped her breathe again. The cold stung her cheeks, but it didn't bite like before. Mariah led with quiet confidence, cutting a back trail through the brush that curved wide around the old wagon road. Clara watched the way the girl moved, like she knew this land better than most grown men. She followed without question. Behind them, Cole rode silent. He was always close enough to hear trouble, but never close enough to press. Clara liked that about him. He didn't make noise just to fill space. They reached Red Willow by midday. It was a dust-flecked little place with a main street lined in weathered storefronts and tired porches. Snowmelt dripped from overhangs. Smoke curled from chimneys. A few men stood outside the feed store. 2 women hauled buckets down the boardwalk. An old dog lifted its head from under a bench, then laid it right back down. Cole rode ahead and dismounted in front of the general store. "Want to come in?" he asked Clara. She hesitated. People in towns remembered faces. They asked questions. But she'd already decided she wouldn't live in hiding. She nodded. "I'm ready." Inside, warmth hit her like a hand. So did the smell: coffee beans, tobacco, flour sacks, pine soap. Behind the counter stood a red-faced man with thick glasses and a sharp grin. "Cole Harrison," he said. "Look what the wind blew back." Cole nodded. "Afternoon, Gus." The shopkeeper's eyes flicked to Clara, then lingered. "Dis your wife?" Cole opened his mouth to correct him, but Clara spoke first. "No, just a friend," she said evenly. Gus's smile twitched. "Well, she's pretty for a storm rescue." Cole's shoulders stiffened, but Clara stepped forward. "I need thread, and tea if you have it." Gus blinked, then moved to the shelf. She followed, steady on her feet, her back straight. She could feel the weight of the room shift, the quiet judgment softening into curiosity. By the time she paid and thanked him, Gus offered a polite smile. "Town's glad you made it," he said. She nodded. "We'll see." Outside, Cole loaded supplies into the saddlebags. Mariah sat on the hitching post, carving something into a block of wood with her belt knife. Clara climbed into the saddle, slower than she wanted but without pain. "Not bad," Cole said. "What?" "You handled that well. Gus isn't easy." "I've dealt with worse," she said. Then added, "I married worse." He didn't laugh, just met her eyes. "Still, I'm proud of you." She looked away fast, but not before he saw the flicker of emotion cross her face. They rode by the sheriff's office on the way out. Cole tied his horse and went inside. Clara waited outside with Mariah. A thin man in a wool coat passed by and tipped his hat. She nodded back. The town was watching her. But it wasn't the same kind of watching as Franklin's. This wasn't control. This wasn't threat. This was just people wondering who she was. For the first time, she realized she could decide the answer. Cole returned with a thin envelope in hand. "Sheriff's heard something," he said, voice low. Clara's heart kicked. "What?" "Franklin was spotted down near Bannock, used a false name, bought whiskey in bulk." Her mouth went dry. "He's still in Montana?" Cole nodded. "Not close, not yet, but not gone either." She swallowed. "Then I was right." "You were." She stared down at the reins in her hands. "I need to be ready." "You're already more ready than you think," Cole said. She didn't feel it, but she wanted to believe him. They made camp halfway home. The light was dropping fast. too much snow to risk the last ridge in the dark. They found a clearing shielded from the wind, set up a small fire. Mariah curled near the horses with her blanket. Cole and Clara sat near the flames. The silence was comfortable now, the kind that held meaning, not absence. Clara sipped coffee from a tin cup. "I used to think silence was dangerous," she said. Cole looked up. "Why?" "Because it always came before something bad, a slammed door, a slap, a threat." He didn't speak. "But now I think I just never knew what real quiet was," she said. "Real quiet isn't empty, it's safe." She stared into the flames. "That's what this feels like." Later, after Mariah had fallen asleep, Clara shifted her blanket and leaned closer. She watched Cole carefully clean the rifle. "You've killed before," she said. He nodded. "In the war, on the trail, once to protect this land." "Does it stay with you?" "Some of them." "Would you do it again?" He didn't answer right away. "Then, if someone came to hurt what I care about, I wouldn't hesitate." She nodded slowly. Then her voice dropped. "Then I hope you still mean that." He set the rifle down. "I do." Their eyes met, and something passed between them, not heat, not hunger, something slower, deeper. Recognition. She laid back against the tree behind her. "You said once this land gave you something," she said. "I remember." "What was it?" He looked up at the stars. "Peace, a place to stop running, a reason to stand still." She smiled faintly. "Think there's room for one more?" "There's always room," he said, "if they know how to listen." She closed her eyes. "I'm learning." The next morning, they rode back to the cabin just as the sun cracked over the hills. Clara stepped down without help, carried her own supplies inside. Mariah was the first to say it. "You didn't flinch once today," she said. Clara blinked, then smiled. "No, I didn't." That night, after dinner, Cole brought her a worn map, unfolded it on the table. He pointed. "This is where they saw him. Bannock. Might be nothing. Might be the beginning." Clara stared at the spot. She didn't speak. Just pressed her finger to the map, to that name, that place. Then she looked up. "If he's moving, he'll come eventually." "Maybe." She straightened her shoulders. "Then let him." Cole studied her. There was no fear in her eyes now, only steel. The woman Franklin left to die just looked at the map and said, "Then let him." The wind shifted on a Wednesday. Cole noticed it first, the way the air smelled like burned cedar and something else, acrid, far. He stepped outside with his rifle slung low and eyes scanning the distant ridges. Clara followed him to the porch. The morning was unusually still, not a bird in sight. The horses fidgeted in the paddock. "You smell that?" Cole asked. She nodded slowly. "Smoke." He pointed to the southeast. A thin column, barely there, rose against the blue. "Too close to the old trapping trail," he muttered. "Could be a campfire," she offered. "Could be him," he said. Neither had to say the name. Inside, Mariah sat sharpening a small knife with a steady rhythm. She didn't look up when Clara and Cole came back in. "Get your things," Cole said to her, "just in case." She paused. "Is it him?" Clara answered, "We don't know, but we'll be ready." Mariah stood. She didn't speak, but she moved fast, like a girl who knew what danger smelled like. Cole loaded the rifle with calm hands. Clara checked the pistol he'd let her practice with every morning for the last 2 weeks. It wasn't fear she felt now. It was readiness, a sharp edge instead of a trembling one. They closed the shutters, locked the door, banked the fire low, waiting. Afternoon passed, slow. Clara sat by the front window watching the tree line. Mariah braided strips of cloth into a rope. Cole cleaned a second rifle without saying a word. Clara broke the silence. What if it's not him? Cole looked up. Then we eat early and sleep light, no harm in caution. But if it is? His eyes darkened. Then he won't get past the porch. At dusk, hoofbeats. Not loud, not rushed, just steady. Cole stood first, rifle ready, eyes narrowed. Clara moved to the far wall, pistol in hand. Mariah crouched by the hearth. The horse came into view, a tall bay, dust-covered and thin. And on its back, a rider slumped sideways. Cole stepped out fast, gun raised. That's far enough. The man barely responded. He slid off the saddle and hit the ground hard. Clara watched from the door. That's not Franklin. Cole turned the man over. Blood stained his coat, a bullet hole in the side. He's shot, Cole said, still breathing. They brought him inside, laid him on the table. Cole cut away the shirt. Clara boiled water. Mariah gathered cloths. It was instinct now, practiced and fast, the same way they'd saved her weeks ago. The man groaned. His lips moved. Easy, Clara said. You're safe. He grabbed her wrist with surprising strength, his eyes wild. Red Willow. He's coming. Man with the scar on his neck. Said your name. Clara's blood ran cold. Cole leaned close. Who? The man's head fell back. He didn't answer. They worked through the night. Fever took hold. He sweated and shook. But he survived. At dawn, he finally slept. Cole stood by the door, jaw tight. Clara sat at the table, arms folded. Mariah passed her a warm mug of broth. She didn't touch it. He said, Franklin's coming, she whispered. Cole didn't answer right away. Then, it's time we stopped waiting for him to choose the ground. Clara met his eyes. You want to go after him? No, Cole said. I want to make damn sure the fight happens on our terms. She nodded. She wasn't scared. She was ready. That afternoon, the man woke briefly. Said his name was Eli, a former ranch hand from the southern flats. Said he'd been riding north when he ran into Franklin Monroe by mistake. He's got 2 men with him, Eli rasped. One mean, one quiet. They're coming slow, tracking. Tracking who? Cole asked. Ellie looked at Clara. You. They reinforced the cabin that night. Cole moved the furniture, checked every window frame, refilled the ammo tins, buried spares near the barn. Clara practiced drawing from the hip. Mariah sharpened everything with a blade. The air felt like something was about to snap. And in the distance, smoke still curled. The man they patched up brought a warning. Franklin wasn't gone. He was hunting and getting close. They left just after dawn. Eli was stable, resting in the loft, fever broken, but still too weak to ride. Mariah stayed behind with a shotgun and instructions. She didn't argue. Cole packed light 2 rifles, a revolver, extra rounds, and dried food. Clara wore a thick coat and carried the pistol he'd taught her to use. Her movements were sharp. Controlled. No shaking, no second thoughts. They rode northeast, following the ridgeline where the smoke had been. The trail was old, but Cole knew it well. A narrow, winding path that looped between pine trunks and jagged stone. Years ago, outlaws used it to slip through without being seen. Now it might bring them to Franklin. Neither of them spoke much. Each had questions, but there was no room left for doubt. Near midday, Cole spotted fresh tracks. 2 horses, one set smaller, dragging slightly on the right. He's not alone, he said. Clara studied the prints. He's got muscle. Yeah, but one of them's injured or green. That drag shows weakness. They followed the tracks as they dipped into a narrow canyon. Steep walls, one way in, one way out. Clara's fingers brushed the pistol on her hip. Her breath stayed even. I don't like this, Cole muttered. It's a kill box. You think they know we're coming? If they don't yet, they will soon. They reached a clearing mid-afternoon. A makeshift camp, cold ashes, a broken flask, tracks leading uphill. Cole crouched near the fire ring, left in a hurry. Clara looked around. You think they saw us? No, I think they heard something, or someone. He stood and pointed to the ridgeline above. They're headed to the high ground. Which means they want the advantage, Clara said. Cole nodded. Which means we're walking into it. She met his eyes. Then let's not walk, let's move like ghosts. He gave a half smile. You learn fast. They left the horses tied in a thicket and climbed the ridge on foot. Snow crunched under boots. The wind picked up again. At the top, they crouched behind a fallen tree. Below, across a narrow drop, sat 3 figures. Franklin, 2 men, one with a bandaged leg, one tall and wiry with a knife strapped to each thigh. Franklin looked exactly as Clara remembered. Same fine coat, same slick-back hair, same smirk that always came before the pain. She froze for half a second, then forced her breath out. Cole whispered, "That him?" "Yes." She drew her pistol, hands steady. "We have the high ground," Cole said. "We can pick them off." "No," Clara said. "Not like that." Cole looked at her. "I need him to know it's me. I want him to see who finished it." He studied her face, then gave a single nod. "All right, your call." He moved wide around the edge of the ridge, covered the flank, left her center stage. She stood slowly, raised the pistol, and called down, "Franklin Monroe." The reaction was immediate. He turned, eyes wide. He didn't recognize her at first. Then he did. His face twisted, surprise, rage, disbelief. "You," he spat, "you should be dead." Clara took 2 steps forward. "You left me in the snow. You shot me like a dog." Franklin stood slowly, hand hovering at his side. "I gave you a life you didn't deserve," he said. "You gave me a cage. You think that rancher makes you strong? He'll bury you too." "No," Clara said calmly. "He taught me how to shoot." Then she pulled the trigger. The bullet caught Franklin in the shoulder. He stumbled backward, swearing. His men scrambled. One raised a rifle. Cole's shot dropped him before he got it aimed. The tall man rushed forward with a blade. Clara held her ground, fired once, missed. The man closed fast. She aimed again, slower, pulled the trigger. He collapsed in the snow, feet from her boots. Franklin was crawling behind a rock, bleeding, screaming. Cole appeared on the far side, gun-trained. Clara walked toward Franklin, each step slow. "You don't get to run," she said. He coughed, blood on his lips. "Please, Clara. You begged me once to trust you, now beg God instead." She raised the pistol, then stopped, lowered it. "No, not like this." Cole stepped beside her. "You sure?" "Yes. Let the law hang him. I want him to know every second he lost." Cole nodded. "Then let's bring him in." They tied Franklin's hands, dragged what remained of the camp down to the trail. He muttered threats, begged, raged, all of it. Clara ignored him. By nightfall, they reached the cabin again. Mariah stood in the doorway, shotgun in hand, eyes wide. Clara called out, "It's done." They brought Franklin inside and locked him in the shed. The sheriff would come soon enough. Cole looked at Clara. "You didn't have to spare him." She stared into the fire. "I know, but I didn't come all this way to be like him." He nodded slowly. "You're not." She believed him. She didn't shoot him dead, because mercy, unlike bullets, still left him with the weight of what he did. The next morning brought silence. Not the tense kind that clings after a fight. This was quieter than that, still, heavy, clean. Snow had fallen again in the night, soft powder covering the trail of blood behind the cabin. The shed stood shut. Inside, Franklin Monroe waited bound, bruised, and very much alive. Cole sat at the kitchen table, polishing his rifle out of habit more than need. Mariah was outside tending the horses. Clara stood by the window, hands wrapped around a warm mug. "You regret not killing him?" Cole asked without looking up. Clara didn't answer right away. "Then, no." She turned to face him, but it doesn't feel like peace either. He met her gaze. Mercy rarely does. She sat down. Her fingers tapped the ceramic softly. "He's still here. Still breathing. Still part of my story. Not forever." She nodded, but the weight didn't leave her shoulders. The sheriff from Red Willow arrived by midday. He came on a mule, wrapped in a thick gray coat, with a badge pinned crooked to his chest. His name was Bill Kemp. 50. Hard jaw. Slower than he used to be, but not dumb. He shook Cole's hand, tipped his hat to Clara. "Got your note from the doc," he said. "He sent word north, said you'd found someone bad." Cole nodded toward the shed. "Franklin Monroe left this woman for dead in a snowstorm, shot her in the back." Sheriff Kemp whistled. "That true?" Clara lifted her chin. "I've got the scar to prove it." "Anyone else see it happen?" "No, just me. But I know what he did." Kemp looked at Cole, then back at Clara. "Self-defense is a wide net out here. Man's breathing, that means paperwork." "We brought him in alive," Cole said. "Don't need it to be clean, just true." Kemp sighed. "All right, I'll take him back to Red Willow. Judge comes in next week. He'll have his say." Clara asked, "Will he stay locked up until then?" Kemp nodded. "We've got a real jail, steel bars, not some shed." She handed him Franklin's pistol. "He won't need this." Kemp took it, turning it in his hand. "Man carries a piece like this, he's either dangerous or stupid." "He's both," Clara said. Franklin didn't speak when they pulled him from the shed. Didn't beg, didn't threaten, just stared. His face was swollen on one side, his coat stiff with dried blood, but his eyes held the same cold calculation she remembered. He looked at Clara, held her gaze. She didn't blink. Kemp tied him to the mule and mounted up. "I'll wire when we've got a trial date," he told Cole. Then to Clara, "If you want to testify, you'll need to be in town." "I'll be there," she said. Kemp tipped his hat and rode off, snow crunching under hooves. The trail curved and disappeared behind the trees. Franklin never looked back. Back inside, Clara set her coat on the peg and exhaled long. "It's not over," she said. "No," Cole said, "but it's yours now." She nodded. "That's the part I need to learn how to carry." Mariah came in with a pail of kindling, her cheeks red, her braid half frozen. "He gone?" she asked. "He's gone," Clara said. The girl's shoulders eased. She said nothing more, but her eyes lit with something like relief. That night they ate stew and said little. The quiet was still there, but different now. It wasn't waiting anymore. It wasn't the kind that held danger. It felt earned. Later Clara stood on the porch wrapped in a blanket. The moon hung low and wide. Cole joined her with 2 mugs. They sipped in silence. "Thank you," she said finally. "For what?" "For standing between me and everything that tried to finish me off." "You stood on your own," he said. "I just made sure you had the chance." She looked at him. "Do you think he'll try to lie in court?" Cole shrugged. "Probably. But it won't work." "No," he said, "because this time the truth isn't bleeding in the snow. It's standing on 2 feet." She smiled. It was tired, but real. In the days that followed, life settled into something close to normal. The horses needed feeding. The roof needed patching. Mariah started carving again. Clara found herself helping more, moving freer, sleeping better. Some nights, the nightmares came back, but she no longer woke gasping. Cole was always nearby, steady, unshaken. They didn't talk about what might come next. But something unspoken grew between them, not rushed, not labeled, just understood. A look held longer, a silence shared deeper, a trust built without words. One afternoon, Clara found herself alone with Mariah. They were folding linens near the stove. The girl spoke first. "You going back east after the trial?" Clara paused, then shook her head. "No, there's nothing for me there anymore." Mariah nodded like she already knew. "You belong here better anyway." Clara folded a blanket and smiled. "I think so too." That evening, as snow began to fall again, Cole took out the old map. He pointed to Red Willow. "One more ride," he said. "You ready to face him in court?" Clara didn't hesitate. "I already did." He smiled. She added, "But I'll say the words loud enough for everyone to hear." He poured her coffee. The fire cracked between them. For once, the wind didn't sound like a threat. Mercy was the bullet she never fired, and the rope Franklin now waited under. Red Willow looked different this time. The town wasn't any bigger. The dirt streets were still frozen, the storefronts leaning slightly with age, but everything felt sharper, more awake, like it knew something important was about to happen. Cole and Clara rode in just after sunrise. Mariah stayed behind with Eli, who was walking now, slow but steady. They stabled the horses and walked to the sheriff's office. Kemp was waiting. He stood outside, arms crossed, eyes squinting against the wind. "Judge is in," he said, "tired from the trip. Trial starts at noon." Clara nodded. Her stomach was tight, but she kept her face calm. "Any sign of trouble?" Cole asked. Kemp shook his head. "Just him. He hasn't said a damn word in 3 days." They followed him inside. The cell was cold. Iron bars, hard bench. Franklin sat with his back to the wall, eyes closed. He opened them when Clara stepped in. Didn't speak. Didn't blink. She stared back, long enough to remind him she wasn't afraid. Then she turned and walked out. The courthouse was just one room in the back of the mayor's office, wooden benches, a raised platform, and a pair of dusty windows. By noon, every seat was filled. Miners, ranchers, wives with toddlers on their laps. Some of them remembered Franklin. Most had heard the rumors. The judge entered, old, thin, and alert. He wore a clean vest and looked like he'd seen enough men lie to spot the truth by smell. "Call the case," he said. Sheriff Kemp stood. The territory of Montana versus Franklin Monroe. Attempted murder. Assault. Abandonment with intent to kill. The judge nodded. "Let's hear it." Franklin's lawyer, a sour-looking man from Bannock, argued first. Said there was no witness. Said Clara had emotional instability. He called her a scorned wife. Painted Cole as a jealous rival. Claimed Franklin had left her because she was unwell. Clara sat still, took every word. Then it was her turn. She stood, walked to the front of the room. Her boots echoed on the floorboards. Her voice didn't shake. She told them what happened. From the start, from Philadelphia to the blizzard. She didn't cry, didn't plead, just gave them the truth. "He said I was a burden," she said. "Then he shot me and left me in the snow." She showed them the scar. Then she pointed at Franklin. "I lived, and he's here because I walked out of that storm." The judge leaned back, watching her. "Anything else?" he asked. She paused. Then said, "I'm not here for revenge. I want the law to say what he did was wrong. I want it on record, so the next man who tries to kill a woman for being inconvenient knows he might hang for it." The judge nodded. She sat down. Cole gave her a small nod across the room. Her heart steadied. Kemp testified next. Then Eli, weak but clear. He described Franklin bragging about what he'd done. "I didn't know who he meant," Eli said, "but he said, 'She won't get far. Snow'll do my job.'" That changed the room. Even the skeptical faces shifted. The judge looked at Franklin. "Want to speak for yourself?" Franklin stood slowly, smoothed his shirt, looked around. Then he said, They're all lying. Nothing more. The judge sighed. Jury doesn't need much time. They didn't. 30 minutes later, the verdict came back. Guilty. All counts. The judge turned to Franklin. You're lucky they brought you in breathing. If it were me bleeding in the snow, I wouldn't have. Sentencing came next. Territory law gives me two options, the judge said. Hard labor or the noose. But seeing as you plan to let the elements do your killing, it feels fair to return the favor. Franklin paled. For the first time, real fear. You'll hang in 3 days, the judge finished. May the Lord judge you better than I can. Outside, the wind picked up again. Clara stepped into the sunlight. Cole joined her. You did it, he said. No, she replied. I finished it. They walked to the stable, packed their things. As they rode out of town, Clara looked back only once. The gallows were being built on the hill. They reached the cabin by dusk. Mariah came running out. Eli waved from the porch. Clara slid off the horse, boots hitting the ground with finality. She didn't speak for a while. Just stood there, breathing. Then, it's done. Cole nodded. You sure? She looked at him. Yes, he's gone, and I'm still here. Later, by the fire, she pulled out the letter she'd written before the trial. A goodbye, just in case. She tossed it into the flames. It curled and blackened, gone. Cole sat beside her, quiet. She leaned into his shoulder. I thought I needed justice to live again, she said. That maybe all I needed was to survive long enough to remember who I was before him. He didn't answer. Just took her hand. And held it steady. Justice wasn't just a verdict, it was the sound of her voice filling the room he used to own. The thaw came late that year. Even into April, snow clung to the higher ridges like it didn't want to give up its hold. But in the valley below, something had shifted. The ice on the river broke. Buds curled from branches, and the wind didn't bite anymore. It nudged. Clara stood by the corral, watching Mariah brush down the younger mare. The girl worked with calm hands now. Confident. Sure. She'd grown in the months since that first night. Clara woke in Cole's cabin. Clara had grown too. Inside the barn, Cole stacked the last of the split wood. His movements were easy, steady. He was humming something low and wordless, and she could hear it even from where she stood. It was the first day she hadn't thought of Franklin since the shooting. Not even once. Later that morning, Clara rode out with Mariah, just the two of them. The trail was muddy but passable, patches of grass pushed up between melting drifts. They rode side by side, mostly in silence, until Mariah finally asked, Are you staying? Clara looked over. The girl's face was unreadable, but her voice carried more than curiosity. I don't have a reason to leave, Clara said. That's not the same. No, Clara agreed, but I want to stay. Mariah smiled faintly. Then this place is lucky. They reached the ridge and stopped. From there, the land opened wide, patches of green, a shimmer of creek, birds overhead. Clara breathed deep. It didn't smell like fear anymore, or memory. It smelled like dirt and sky. Back at the cabin, Cole was hammering a hinge onto the back shed. Clara joined him, handed him nails when he asked. After a while, he said, You sleep better now. She nodded. Still get dreams, but they don't win anymore. He set the hammer down. You ever think about rebuilding something of your own? She tilted her head. Like what? A place, a space, something that's yours start to finish. Doesn't have to be here, but... She smiled. I like here. They stood quiet for a moment. Then she said, I used to think survival meant running far, getting as much space between me and the pain as I could. He looked at her. And now? Now I think survival is just staying where you are long enough to make it mean something. Cole nodded. That sounds like someone who's starting to belong. That evening, Mariah cooked stew while Eli carved spoons at the table. Clara helped Cole in the barn. They were checking fence lines, fixing the rails a late freeze had split. She held a post in place while he nailed it. "Does this place feel like home to you yet?" he asked. She looked up at the cabin, then around at the trees, the hill, the sky curling orange in the west. "Yes," she said, "but not just the place." He smiled. "I know." They ate late, sat long after the fruit was gone, talking, laughing, quiet sometimes, the way people do when they've come through something real and found their way to the other side. Mariah leaned back in her chair and said, "Tomorrow we start on the garden, right?" "First thing," Cole said. Clara raised an eyebrow. "You plant vegetables?" Cole shrugged. "Try to. Weather usually fights me." Mariah grinned. "We'll win this time." The next morning, Clara stood in the middle of the yard with a shovel in hand. The soil was soft beneath the frost, dark, damp, full of promise. She sank the blade in, pulled up the first clump, set it aside, and again, and again. Cole joined her with seed sacks. Ely came out next, Mariah behind him, sleeves rolled, hair tied back. It wasn't a big patch of land, just enough for carrots, beans, maybe squash. But it felt like more. It felt like planting something into the future, something that might last. They worked for hours, took breaks, drank water, argued over row spacing. And when the first row was finally done, Clara sat back on her heels and smiled. "Nothing fancy," she said, "but it's ours." Cole wiped sweat from his brow. "Fancy's overrated." That night they stood under the stars again. Clara leaned into his side. "I'm not the same person who fell in the snow," she said. "No," Cole agreed. "You're stronger now." She looked up. "I don't feel like I'm carrying him anymore. He's just gone." "You carried him long enough." She nodded. "I'd like to carry something lighter now." He smiled. "Then let's plant more." They stood there, the air warming around them. No wind, no howling pest. Just now. And next. Healing didn't come all at once, but every seed she planted said she wasn't afraid to stay. Summer came fast. The hills greened over like someone had painted them in one long sweeping motion. The creek ran full, wild with snowmelt, and the air held the smell of pine, wet bark, and something Clara hadn't let herself name yet: freedom. She spent more time alone now, but not out of need, out of choice, out of strength. Each morning, she walked the property line, sometimes with Mariah, sometimes alone. She checked the fence, scattered seed, took notes in a small journal Cole had given her. "This is how ranchers begin," he'd said, "with what they see and what they remember." One morning she paused by the western edge. The path there dipped low, where wagon tracks had long since faded into wild grass. She stared at it for a while. It was the road Franklin had taken, the same road that nearly killed her. Now it looked like nothing more than part of the land. No ghosts, no blood, just dirt and time. She turned from it, walked back without looking over her shoulder. Cole had started drawing plans for a new barn, bigger, sturdier. He'd asked her to help. They spread blueprints out on the kitchen table and argued over angles, beam width, where to hang lanterns. She didn't always agree. He liked that about her. "You ever think of building something more permanent?" he asked once. She looked up. "You mean the barn?" He smiled. "I mean a life." She didn't answer right away, just tapped her pencil on the edge of the page. "Then, that's what I'm doing." He nodded, quiet. He didn't push her. He never had. A letter arrived from Red Willow in late July. Sheriff Kemp wrote in short, careful lines. Franklin's body had been claimed by no one. He was buried outside town with no marker. The rope had done its job. The past was officially dead. Clara folded the letter and put it in the fire. She didn't watch it burn. She stepped outside and began weeding the garden instead. Mariah began calling her Miss Clara less and just Clara more. Ely followed her around like a shadow now, not because he needed to, but because he liked how she listened when he spoke. She had a way of looking at people like they were the only voice in the room. One afternoon he asked, "Did you ever think about leaving again?" She leaned on her hoe and smiled. "I did, but not lately." "Good," he said, "'cause we'd miss you too much." She looked over at the cabin, at the trees beyond, and nodded. "I'd miss me too." That night, Cole made coffee strong enough to strip paint. They sat outside on the steps, legs stretched, watching stars blink one by one into the sky. He said, "You ever miss who you were before all this?" She thought about that, then shook her head. She didn't know how to fight, or to stay, or to be anything but afraid. He didn't say anything, but his hand found hers. Not asking, just knowing. 3 days later, Clara found a parcel near the edge of the woods, a leather-bound ledger, blank pages. Someone had left it on a stump with a ribbon around it. Inside, one line written in Cole's hand, "If you ever want to build something that's yours, I figure it starts here." No signature, didn't need one. She held it against her chest a moment, then walked it back to the cabin. That evening, she stood at the edge of the same ridge she'd once stared down with fear. Only this time it wasn't Franklin's shadow she saw, it was a stretch of land full of promise. Green fields, tall pine, and just beyond, the faint curl of smoke from Cole's chimney. She pulled out the ledger, wrote on the first page, "The road nearly killed me, but it also showed me where to stop running." Then she turned back, took the road toward home. She could have gone anywhere, but the road she chose led back to where she'd finally started living. Clara didn't mark the first day of spring by a date. It wasn't a matter of calendar pages or equinox lines. For her, spring arrived with the sound of Mariah laughing as she chased Eli through the field. It came with the smell of turned earth, the kind that stuck under your fingernails and reminded you that something new was always waiting beneath the cold. She felt it in her chest before she saw it, like breath returning after too long underwater. The garden had taken shape. Carrots, potatoes, squash, the rows were uneven, the fencing rough, but it was theirs, built with hands that had once only known how to survive. Now those same hands planted things meant to grow. The cabin porch had been repaired. A new coat of whitewash brightened the wood. Cole carved a bench from pine, set it under the porch eaves. Clara often sat there in the late afternoons with her journal, writing what she remembered, what she hoped for, and sometimes just writing names. Names of people who were gone. Names of people who stayed. Names of the woman she used to be. Cole built the barn. She helped to raise the frame, climbed ladders without fear. They didn't talk much about what came next, but everything they did together seemed to ask the same question. "Do you want to stay?" And every time she showed up, rolled her sleeves, lifted beams, or kissed him on the cheek without thinking, it was her answer. "Yes. Yes, I do." On the last Sunday in May, Clara took Eli down to the creek. They brought tin cups and sat barefoot at the edge. The boy asked her questions about everything. Why do rocks skip? Why do frogs croak at night? What do clouds taste like? She answered as best she could. She didn't know if any of it would stick. But maybe what mattered wasn't the answer. Maybe it was the sitting, the being there, the kind of stillness she never knew she could hold before. That night, as the sun set behind the pines, Cole lit the lanterns early. They had company, some neighbors from across the ridge, a woman named Lisa and her sons. They ate outside, past a stew pot, traded stories. Someone played harmonica. And for a while nothing felt wounded or waiting. Just lived. Clara leaned her head on Cole's shoulder. "You thinking?" he asked. I'm remembering, she said. He nodded. Good things or bad? Both, but mostly I'm just glad to have the choice now. After the others left, Cole poured her a final cup of coffee. They stood at the porch rail. The moon climbed slow over the treetops. I ever tell you what I thought when I first saw you? He asked. She smiled. That I looked like hell? He chuckled. Well, yeah, but more than that. I thought you were someone who hadn't given up yet, even if you didn't know it. She reached for his hand. I hadn't. I just needed someone to remind me what living looked like. He turned to her. And now? I know what it looks like, and I know what it feels like. They didn't kiss right then. They didn't need to. They just stayed there. Still. Safe. Days passed, then weeks. Mariah started drawing again. She sketched the horses, the trees, Cole splitting wood. She sketched Clara too once in the field, another time reading by firelight. Ellie learned to ride without falling. He fell anyway sometimes, but now he laughed when he hit the dirt. Clara noticed that. The laughing. It was a sound she hadn't expected to fall in love with again. One morning, she found the old scarf she'd worn the day Franklin left her in the snow. She didn't cry. She didn't keep it either. She tied it to a branch by the ridge, the same place she'd once stood, not sure she had the strength to keep walking. Now it fluttered like a flag. Not of surrender, but of survival. Of something made whole. Clara stood in the doorway of the barn that evening, watching the storm clouds gather. Summer storms didn't scare her now. She knew how to outwait them. Cole came up beside her. Rain's coming, he said. I know. They stood shoulder to shoulder. We got the tools tied down? She asked. Already done. He looked at her. You all right? She nodded. I'm home. He didn't answer. But he didn't need to. The first drop hit the roof. Then another. Then the sky opened. But they stayed where they were, watching it fall. And that was enough. The story didn't end with a gunshot. It didn't end with revenge. It didn't end at all, really. It became something better, something built slowly, day by day, on land that didn't forget but forgave. Clara Monroe didn't erase her past. She rewrote it. With hands that healed. With soil that gave back. And with a heart that had learned finally and fully that the hardest roads don't always lead away. Sometimes they lead you right to where you're meant to stay. She survived the storm, but more than that, she learned to live after it.